Okay, folks, now it's time to do a process. So to process these out to something more usable, I'm going to click on my, and this is after we do our global color correction and our, just going to select any adjustments we need to. So I'm going to go into the um, output tool tab. Now, whether I'm here in my selects folder or capture folder, just make sure that my suggestion is you take your images once you're done editing them, make sure they're in the selects folder if you haven't done that so already. So click on the output tool tab, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new recipe. Now I have a bunch of recipes here. So what I want you guys to do, let's try to get rid of some here I don't need. Yep, yep, don't need this one. Okay, so for you guys, and I'll keep that I guess, we're going to create a new recipe. We're going to basically create a tiff recipe. So we're going to go new recipe here in the recipe process recipe tool tab. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it tiff RGB Adobe RGB, and then we're going to go 1998. That is the actual RGB format, and then 8-bit. So that just tells us what this will be. In the process recipe, we're going to set our settings to TIFF, 8-bit, always 8-bit for first year. Options, uncompressed to LZW. That's just going to compress our files just a little bit. ICC profile, very important that we are in Adobe RGB 1998. We always want to make sure we're in the right color space. Resolution 300 dpi or ppi. Scale fix 100% and do nothing once it's open. That's what we want to set up here. Location should always be the output folder. Image name, again, I always leave this as image name because I batch rename after the fact. So this has already been batch renamed. So what I'm going to do is make sure it stays the same. And when I click on an image, it'll give you a process recipe summary. So recipe, this is the recipe that's going to run. That's the file name that the image is selected onto. That'll be when it's done. The sizing, the scale, the color space, the ICC profile, format, and then the approximate size. Now, you can run more than one at once. So for example, we'll create a second. We'll call this JPEG, Adobe RGB 1998, and you can't really assign a bit depth with JPEG. So now what we're going to do is turn off TIFF. To select a recipe you want to edit, make sure you actually have it selected. So we're going to make sure we have JPEG Adobe RGB 1998. We're going to change the format now to JPEG. You'll see bit depth, you don't have an option to change bit depth. Quality at 100%. We'll leave the rest. ICC profile to Adobe RGB 1998, 300. There we go. Nice. If I want to run both of these at the same time, I just add a check mark. Now my TIFF will run and my JPEG will run. And then you'll see down here recipe, Adobe, and JPEG. Now if I hit Command A to select all, what I have selected will run. I'm going to go ahead and click Process. And I'm going to pause this. But just before I do, as it runs, you're going to see each icon here will have a gear icon. It'll be orange while the process is running, and it'll be white when it disappears, or sorry, when it finishes. I'll go over here to my output folder now in my library tool tab. And we'll see I'll have a JPEG and a TIFF. JPEG, TIFF, JPEG, TIFF. Now, you don't have to run JPEG and TIFF at the same time. If I ask you to run JPEG and TIFF at the same time, this is a quick and easy way to do it. Sometimes I'll just ask you guys for TIFF. So make sure you uncheck what you want to run. And when you don't have something selected, you'll get a warning here. So if I only want to run TIFF, make sure you also have it selected as well. There we go. There we go, guys. That is how we do some processing. I will pause. That took about a minute and a half or so to finish those off, so your timing will vary. So now in my output folder, I should have 20 images. I have a JPEG and TIFF of each image. If I go into my Finder, you'll see the output folder reflects this. So I have one file of TIFF. Actually, it's going to organize my TIFFs first. So there are the first 10 TIFF files, and then there are the 10 JPEG files. They can have the same name because they're different file formats and they have different file extensions. But there you go. That is how we output images. Now I can upload these to the web or bring these in the TIFFs into Photoshop for editing, and then upload my JPEGs to the web. There you go. That's how we output.